Hello, friends. Welcome to Gentleman Cadet Academy GCA. Hope you all are doing good. So, today the video is regarding Naxalism, and it is a very important topic as Naxalism is the biggest internal security challenge that we are facing from last many decades. So, the video is going to cover each and everything about Naxalism, but it's gonna be in crisp form, keeping lecture it in mind so that you can cover the topic within 3 minutes. So, like always, without wasting any time, let us start. So, starting with the basic information, Naxalism is also referred to as Maoist insurgency, and it is a socio-political and armed movement primarily active in some rural and forested areas of India. And the movement was influenced by Maoist ideology, which advocates for a peasant-led revolution to overthrow the existing state structures. In talking about the historical background, so the roots of the Naxalism can be traced back to the peasant uprising in Naxalbari village in 1967, which is in West Bengal, and this revolt against feudal land owners was spearheaded by a faction of Communist Party of India, particularly influenced by the teachings of Mao Zedong, and the movement sought to address the grievances of landless peasants and marginalized communities, and it is grounded in Marxist, Leninist, and Maoist thought, which advocates for the overthrow of the state through revolutionary means. And the movement's ideology emphasizes the need for an armed struggle as a way to liberate the oppressed and also to establish a communist society. And Naxalites, they argue that traditional electoral politics they fail to address the plight of the marginalized. Now, talking about the key phases of Naxalism, so the first phase was in 1967 to 71. So the movement spread to various parts of West Bengal and neighboring states after starting in Naxalbari, and the government responded with a brutal crackdown which led to the death of many Naxalite leaders and activists, and the movement faced with severe repression leading to its fragmentation. Then the second phase started in the 80s, from 1980s to 1990s. So the late 70s and the 1980s saw a resurgence of Naxalism, particularly in the central Indian states, and the formation of Communist Party of India, Marxist and Leninist People's War in 1980 marked a new phase of organized armed struggle, and the CPIM emerged as a major faction after the merger of several splinter groups in 2004. The third phase, which is the current phase, was started in 2000, and today Naxalism predominantly manifests in the so-called Red Corridor, which includes parts of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Maharashtra. And the movement has increasingly resorted to guerrilla warfare, ambush tactics, and also direct attack on security forces. Then, in terms of geographical spread and impact, so the Red Corridor is basically a belt of territory where Naxalite influence is strongest, and this region is characterized by underdevelopment, poverty, and tribal population, making it fertile ground for the Naxalite movement. And the difficult terrain and dense forests they provide strategic advantages for the Naxalites. Then, in terms of social impact, it has significantly impacted rural communities. While it has raised awareness about issues like land rights, social justice, and government neglect, it has also led to the violence and instability. And the conflict has resulted in numerous casualties, displacements, and a climate of fear among local population. Now, let us talk about the ideological roots of Naxalism. So, the Naxalism draw heavily from the Mao Zedong theories regarding peasant-based revolution, and the movement's ideology can be broken down into several key components. The first is class struggle. So, at its core, Naxalism is rooted in the belief that Indian state is a tool of capitalist oppression, benefiting a small elite at the expense of vast majority of population. And Naxalite seeks to mobilize the working class and peasantry to overthrow the system. Second is guerrilla warfare. So, inspired by Maoist tactics, Naxalite advocate for a protracted people's war. This involves building a base among rural population, organizing them, and engaging in armed struggle against state forces. The use of guerrilla warfare allows them to operate effectively in difficult terrain and also to gain the support of local communities. Then third is the collective ownership. So Naxalite envision a society where land and resources are collectively owned and controlled by the people, and they aim to dismantle the existing feudal and capitalist structures that they believe exploit rural communities. Then the fourth is the critic of electoral politics. So Naxalites they often argue that electoral process in India is a facade that serves the interest of the ruling class only, and they reject mainstream political avenues as ineffective for bringing about real change, believing that armed struggle is necessary to achieve their goals. Then, talking about its socio-economic context, so it is not merely an ideological movement, it is deeply rooted in the socio-economic realities of the region where it thrives. So, several factors contribute to the rise and persistence of Naxalism. The first is poverty and underdevelopment. So many areas affected by Naxalism are characterized by high levels of poverty, unemployment, and lack of access to basic services such as education and healthcare. Second is land disputes. So land rights and access to land are critical issues in rural India. And many tribal communities and landless laborers, they face dispossession and exploitation by landlords and corporations. Third is the tribal displacement. So, the encroachment of industrialization and development projects in tribal areas has led to significant displacement and loss of livelihood for indigenous population, and they often advocate for the rights of these communities. Fourth is the corruption and governance issues. So, widespread corruption in local governance and law enforcement has eroded the trust in state institutions. So, they often portray themselves as an alternative to ineffective and corrupt state machinery. Now, let us talk about the implications of Naxalism for security. So, the Naxalite movement presents a complex security challenge for India, and the key implications include the very first is violence and counterinsurgency. So, the conflict between Naxalites and security forces has resulted in thousands of deaths, including civilians, security personnel, and Naxalites themselves. Second is the impact on development. So, the presence of Naxalism disrupts development efforts in affected areas. Infrastructure projects may be stalled or subjugated due to violence and insecurity. Third is the rural insurgency. So, Naxalism exemplify the broader trend of rural insurgency in India, highlighting the challenges of governance and security in remote areas, and the state's inability to effectively address the socio-economic roots of discontent can lead to protracted conflict. Then, fourth is the regional security dynamics. So, Naxalism is not confined to India only; it has implication for regional security in South Asia also, because the movements across border links and interactions with other insurgent groups raise concerns for both India and the neighboring countries. Now let us talk about the major Naxalite incidents in India. So the very first is Dantewada attack of 2010. It is one of the deadliest Naxalite attacks, where over 65 CRPF personnel they were martyred, and Naxalite ambushed the patrol team, leading to a prolonged and bloody encounter. Second is Bijapur attack of 2021, so where around 22 security personnel were martyred in an ambush by Naxalites in the Bijapur district of Chhattisgarh. And this incident highlight the strength and the operational capabilities of Naxalite factions in the region. Third is the Sukma Bijapur attack of 2017. So it was in Sukma district of Chhattisgarh where 25 CRPF jawans were martyred in an ambush by over 300 Maoists. And this attack shocked the nation and resulted in intensified government crackdowns in the area. Then fourth is the attack in the district of Maharashtra in 2019 when Naxalites triggered a landmine blast where 15 security personnel were martyred. Then fifth is the Malkangri encounter of 2016. It is in Odisha where security forces they launched an operation that resulted in the deaths of around 30 Naxalites, including senior leaders. And this operation dealt a significant blow to the Maoist organization in the area. And talking about the recent trends of attack, so while the frequency of incidents has reduced due to the government operations, but Naxalites they continue to carry out attacks. For example, roadside ID blast, which is an improvised explosive device targeting patrol teams, have been common in areas like Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, and they are often aimed at a disrupting movement and spreading fear among local population. Second is the sabotage of infrastructure. So Naxalites regularly destroy bridges, roads, and communication towers to isolate areas from government access. Now let us discuss the perspectives of stakeholders. So understanding Naxalism requires examining the perspectives of various stakeholders involved in the conflict. So the first is the government and security forces. So the Indian government views Naxalism as a significant threat to national security and stability, and the security forces prioritize military action to dismantle Naxalite networks, often emphasizing the need for law and order over addressing underlying grievances. Second is the civil society and human rights organization. So many civil rights groups they advocate for the rights of marginalized communities and highlight the need for a more nuanced approach that goes beyond military solutions. Third is the local communities. So communities in Naxalite affected areas they often find themselves caught in the crossfire between state forces and Naxalite. While some may support Naxalite agendas due to their grievances, others seek peace and development without violence. Then fourth is the Naxalite leadership. So the leadership of the Naxalite movement they often frame their struggle as a legitimate fight for social justice, where they emphasize their role in organizing marginalized communities and challenging oppressive structures. Now, moving to the final part of the video, that is current developments and future prospects. So, the first is shift in strategy. So, Naxalites they are adapting their strategies in response to the increased military pressure, and this includes a greater emphasis on urban networks and recruitment from marginalized communities in city. Then the second is government initiatives. So, the government has introduced the various development schemes such as integrated tribal development project, which is aimed at addressing the socio-economic conditions in tribal areas. However, the effectiveness of these initiatives in reducing Naxalite influence remains a subject of debate. Third is the peace talks and negotiations. So there have been number of attempts at a dialogue between government and Naxalite factions. However, sustained and meaningful negotiations have been hampered by mutual distrust and ongoing violence. Then the last is the impact of technology. So the use of technology, including surveillance and intelligence gathering, has changed the dynamics of the conflict. And Naxalites also employ technology for communication and coordination, reflecting an evolving battlefield. Then, finally, in the conclusion, I can say Naxalism is a multifaceted issue that reflects deeper socioeconomic, political, and historical dynamics in India. And the movement's persistence underscores the urgent need for a comprehensive and integrated approach that effectively addresses the root causes of discontent among marginalized communities while ensuring security and promoting sustainable development. And to achieve this goal, it is important for all the stakeholders, including the government, civil society organization, and the local communities, to engage in constructive dialogue and collaborative efforts. And such collaborations should focus on addressing the underlying issues that fuel the conflict, such as poverty, land rights, and the lack of access to basic services. So, by working together, these stakeholders can create an environment conducive to social justice, economic opportunity, and empowerment of the communities impacted by Naxalism. So, only through such a holistic and inclusive approach, the cycle of violence can be broken and a sustainable path toward peace and development can be established in the troubled regions of India. So, friends, this is all about Naxalism, and I have tried to keep this video as short as possible, and I hope this video will be helpful for you. So, until then, keep watching, keep learning, and keep supporting. Thank you, and best of luck.